My name is Richard Gayle, and thank you again for joining me on Radical Shift. I am constantly amazed at God's creation, especially humans. When I begin to understand how much God has downloaded in us, it makes me want to just give Him glory every day of my life. Just a little bit more glory every day. Because we are deep. We are the greatest of God's creation. The unfortunate thing is, some of us are not conscious of who we are. Because we are so conditioned to be drawn by the things outside. Everything before our eyes and not behind our eyes. I want to help you today to come into consciousness or serious awareness of self and how we can do that. Consciousness is the state of being aware of who you are, not just on the external, because what you see out here is hosting the greater part of us. The greater part of us is on the inside. And I want you to know that many people do not know, have no clue at all who they are on the inside. They don't know it is possible to have things in them that they are capable of doing, but don't know it yet. Because it's not in their consciousness and they're not aware of it. Let me just repeat that. You are capable of doing more than you're doing right now because you have unlimited potential in you. You are capable to do things you are not doing, but because you don't know it, because it's not in your consciousness, you will not attempt to do it. With that said, most of us are just living a fraction of our lives, operating in a fraction of our abilities, operating in less than we are. I want to encourage you today that you are more than you think you are. What you know is sometimes a two-edged sword. Because if what you know is great, is comprehensive, is wide, is expansive, then that's good, that's a positive. But if what you know is limited, that spot right there, that thing right there becomes your greatest enemy. Because nobody lives or operates outside of what they know. Everything we are right now, today, right now, as you're listening to my voice, everything you are is based on what you know. You cannot be greater than what you know. You cannot be bigger than what you know. You will not be able to achieve more than what you know. What you know is going to expand you or keep you in a spot that you don't want to be in. What you know is going to make you successful or become a failure. What you know, if it's narrow, if it's not expansive, is going to be the place of your prison. That's where you're going to live, and that's where you're going to die. And to make it worse is all of us has that desire in us to do greater and bigger things. But the problem is we can't do it. We can't go at it because the mind capped the potential. The mind what we know is shutting it down. The scripture said, my people perish because of lack of knowledge. Many people are trying to do life in the dark, do life not knowing who they are. And everything they experience and all of their results will reflect what they know. They are going to frustrate themselves. They are going to blame God and sometimes blame other people. Like I said in one of my episodes, that there was a time in my life when I blamed everybody else and I blamed everything else, not knowing that I was my own prison. I was my own prison guard, and I had the key to my own prison because I was functioning in what I know. Certain things about me did not come to my consciousness. I was not aware of who I am because I was so externally driven. We want to thank God for what you look like in the mirror. You know, beautiful, handsome, and we can put it together when we want. But believe me, that is just a fraction of who you are. We're going to take a break and come back in a minute. Activate the Power Now and Think Like God are two great books that you need to have in your library. God has inspired me to write these two books. Activate the Power Now gives us various ways to access the power of God. And if there's a time that we need the power of God, or need to access the power of God, is now. Think Like God teaches us how to think, not only as a man, but to think like God. But when we begin to think like God, we can access God on another level. Make sure you have these books. They will change your life and lead you into new understanding and new divine discovery. Send me an email or call the number on the screen, and I will make sure you have these books. Thank you for your patience. Radical Shift is designed to energize, to motivate you to make that shift that you need to come into your own self-awareness. You know, I am speaking from experience because I was there. I knew something else was in me, but I couldn't tell you what it is. I knew that I could do more, but I just didn't know how to do it. Until the Lord helped me, went through training, coaching, leadership training, and I was taught to look inside. I was taught to shift my focus. I was taught to listen to the voice of my emptiness. Why am I smiling but feeling so empty? Why there are people saying to me, good job, Richard, but I didn't feel like I was doing a good job. I felt like I always was coming up short. Until I learned to listen to the voice of my emptiness. And I understand that my emptiness was not saying to me that I am not good. It wasn't saying that I can never achieve. It wasn't saying that somebody else is better than I am. It wasn't saying this is how it's going to be for the rest of my life. The voice of my emptiness was saying to me, Richard, you have more room. I didn't feel like it was saying that to me at the time. That space was just full of frustration and doubt that I have to fight off every day. I had to fight off my doubts. I had to fight off my frustration. I had to fight off a lot of stuff because, I prayed and fast because I thought that most of what I was going through at the time was God's responsibility. I never realized that some of it are my responsibility. It was my responsibility to come into my own self-consciousness, my self-awareness, and listen to the voice of my emptiness and define those voices correctly. It is easy when you feel empty to feel like you're no good, to experience low self-confidence, frustration, and a feeling of wanting to throw up your hands and give up. But remember this, the voice of your emptiness is just saying one thing. Here's a right definition of that voice. You have more room to grow, room to change, room to learn something new, room to get rid of the past and the frustration and begin to feel a new energy. It's in you. When the emptiness we feel is filled with new learning, we will be thrust into the light of awareness. And we will like it. We will love it. And watch this. When what you have on the inside comes to your consciousness, when that new thing hits your consciousness, you will never go back to the old thing. You will never go back to that thing that held you bound. You will never go back to the thing that caused you to second guess yourself. You will never go back to the thing that fill you of frustration, fill you of self-doubt, because you are conscious of who you are. Remember, you can do more than you're doing. You just don't know it yet. You must believe that the veil of ignorance of who you are can go. You must believe that where you are does not speak for your entire life. Where you are in your journey right now only speak to your self-awareness. And you only function in what you're aware of. But anytime you begin to expand and discover yourself, anytime you begin to dig deeper, to shift your focus from the external to the internal. I think I heard somebody said everything great and valuable that God has placed in the earth or has given to man, He put it on the inside. Oil is on the inside of the earth. Gold is in the inside of the earth. Very valuable things are in the earth. And the most valuable things that God has ever given to us is on the inside of us. This is why the enemy always want to keep us distracted with what's going on out here. Because we become reactors. We react to everything that goes on out here. But when we get on the inside and begin to discover ourselves, that discovery will remove self-marginalization, will remove self-doubt. We will be liberated from our own mental prisons. We will quit devaluing ourselves and allow other people to devalue us. I think sometimes when we are not conscious of who we are, we allow people to marginalize us and we smile. We allow people to devalue us and we smile. But when you're conscious of who you are, you will not accept these things. You will find a community that will add value to you, that will help to make you the person God say you are. When what you say to yourself changes, your destination will change. When you are not conscious of who you are, your language is different. Your language can only be supportive of where you are. But when you begin to be conscious of the power and the potential that God has placed in you, then you'll begin to change what you say to yourself. And when you change your words, your destination will change. My friends, if you want to know where you are and where you are going, listen to yourself. The words that are coming out of your mouth will tell you if you have value on yourself or you're devaluing yourself. The words coming out of your mouth will tell you if you're marginalizing yourself. You are better than where you are. If somebody have to tell you who you are, better yet, if you're waiting on somebody to tell you who you are, you have no clue of who you are. And if you don't have any clue of who you are, then anything people say you are, you are. But God did not put you here to live like that. He wants you to be conscious. He wants you to be mindful. He wants you to take some time, some quiet time, and go inside to discover yourself, to know who you are, to find who you are. When you find who you are, you don't have to wait for people to tap you on the shoulder or give you a high five. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite saying is, what people have to say about me is none of my business, because I'm confident. I know who I am, and I want you to know who you are. God wants you to know who you are. He wants you to be conscious, to be self-aware. More on this subject in a minute.
Vessels, instruments that is used by God to flow into the earth, to convey His message, His presence, His will. Don't you know that Satan knew you was coming? He knew that God had a destiny for you. And he tried everything so far to abort your destiny. You are a vessel. And you are the instruments of God.
Now, what do I have to do to come into my own consciousness, my own self-awareness? Here it is. Mindful living. Mindful living is very important. What is mindful living? Mindful living is to pay attention to your thoughts and feelings. We can't just go through the day not knowing what's going through our minds and not paying any attention to our feelings. When we are 100% focused on things that are before our eyes, we are certainly going to miss the important things that are going on behind our eyes. We have to be mindful. We have to be present in what we're thinking. Mindful living requires attention to our thoughts. Don't you ever let another day pass in your life and you don't know what's going on up there. It is said that over 70,000 thoughts go through a person's mind every day. Over 70,000. Can you imagine? Over 70,000 thoughts go through a person's mind per day. And out of the 70,000 thoughts, can you identify at least 10 of them? If you were to write something down of the thoughts that went through your mind today, would you remember? Most people wouldn't, because they don't have any clue what's going on in there, because they're so living in the future, if you will, or living in the external, that they are not centered. They are not present in their minds. Now, here is something very important that you have to hear, and why it is so important that we monitor, that we're present in our thoughts. Because we want to identify what our dominant thoughts are. That's very important. The things we think about the most. Why is it important to identify our dominant thoughts? It is important to know them because they are the thoughts that run our lives. The dominant thoughts are the thoughts that control our lives. We go where our dominant thoughts take us. We do what our dominant thoughts tells us to do. We focus on the area of our dominant thoughts. Let's say that my dominant thought for the day, or for the better part of my life, is to think of how I am going to be critical about someone. Or to think that I always believe that someone is trying to get me. Now, that is going to affect my body. It is going to affect my personality. It is going to affect my relationship. And it's going to affect my level of success, if any. So it is important for me to identify those dominant thoughts. For if my dominant thought is to be ready to be critical about someone, then that may hurt a working relationship. It may hurt a relationship that I really need in my life. And I tell you, it will hurt the success in the workplace that you expect, church, or even your own business. So I must identify it, get in the presence of it, and change it. Those dominant thoughts, when they're not supportive of where you're going, when they're not supportive of your goals, when they're not supportive of how you want to feel, when they're not supportive of your church, your relationship, you have to change them. You have to change them. Because if you don't change them, your results will always be the same. And you can move from here to Russia, or from Russia to anywhere else in the world. You are going to experience the same outcome. Because your dominant thoughts are powerful. You go where they go. You say what they want you to say. You feel how they want you to feel. And you may be a church leader. What is your dominant thoughts about ministry? What is your dominant thoughts about the people you lead? What is your dominant thoughts about people who don't always see eye to eye with you? Is there any psychological safety on your board? Is there psychological safety in your church? Do you allow people to be free thinkers and be able to say what they have to say? If your dominant thought is when someone disagrees with you, they're against you, then you're going to have some serious problems in your church. All you have to do is to think the opposite of your negative dominant thoughts, change it. Instead of thinking that the ministry or the business or the organization is going to go belly up, you can choose the opposite thought. Choose to think that in the midst of all of this, my business, my life, my ministry will do exceptionally well. It's the thoughts. You have to be conscious of them. You have to be conscious of where they're leading you. You have to be conscious of how they make you feel. In the Word of God, it states that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. What this word is literally saying is we can think our way to failure. We can think our way to success. But we must be present. Imagine 70,000 thoughts running through our heads daily. And let us say half of them are negative. And we have no clue. Can you imagine what kind of life that is? Can you imagine the destruction? Do you understand now why many of us are failing? We're trying hard, but we're failing. Because the thoughts that's running our lives and emotions are negative. And anywhere you put those negative behavior, the results are going to be the same. Negative in, negative out. Thank you so much for joining me on Radical Shift, where we keep it simple, we keep it real, and we keep it straight.